Hello, hello. It is 7 o'clock here. So we are going to go ahead and get started so we can be respectful of everyone's time. At least 7 o'clock on the East Coast. I forget we're now global in the Zoom economy, as I call it. My name is Alex Brashears. I'm one of the admins for Hampton Roads Multifamily and more. And tonight we're going to have something that I feel like a lot of multifamily investors feel like they don't have enough information about. And that's, I think, talking to brokers, because you really can't start your multifamily journey until you're out there talking to brokers looking for deals. And usually, if you want to find the deals, you need to have some sort of relationship with a broker, but there tends to not be a lot out there about how to do that, what they're looking for, what the conversation looks like. So we went and found one. So tonight we have Tal Tamir. And I'm going to let him do his intro so he can tell you a little bit more about himself and what he's doing in real estate.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex, for having me here. Really appreciate it. Excited to be a part of this video. So I'll give you kind of a little brief background about myself. Born and raised here in Cleveland, Ohio. Grandfather's a big developer, built a lot of residential, commercial real estate, things like that. So I was kind of exposed to the real estate, from a very young age. Was very successful, did a very good job. I don't know if you can see it, but that's him over there in the picture with my mom. Actually, I just realized. But yeah, definitely an inspiration for me, and got into real estate, I want to say about 4 years ago. I'm currently have a real estate team here in Cleveland where we help people buy and sell investment properties. I'm not like your typical commercial broker where I work for an Marks and Millichap or a CBRE or something like that. We kind of have niched ourselves down to present people anywhere between 1 and 20 units. We do a lot of portfolios as well, single family, small multifamily, in that nature. And then I have another business called Prospera Ventures, where it's me, my fiance, and one more partner, where we actually acquire larger multifamily properties. So anything 20, 30 plus units, that's what we're personally buying. So I can speak to the broker side, being a real estate agent with a team, working with investors from across the globe, really help them buy and sell properties, what I look for. And then also when I'm going to talk to brokers, how I present myself and my team, what that kind of looks like too. So I think I have a good, generalization of what that looks like. It's good to see kind of both sides of everything.
Oh, I
So
totally agree.
that's a little bit about me. We have about 80 units right now in our personal portfolio. We have another actually 24 units closing tomorrow, which we're very excited about. And yeah, ask away. I'm an open book, happy to, go through anything. And obviously any questions outside of this, happy to answer those as well.
So since we're talking on the question front, if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question directly, feel free to do that, or you can also type it in the chat. And you can type it in the chat to either send a question to everyone or just send it to me specifically, and I can ask it on your behalf if you'd like to remain anonymous. But given that you're buying and representing, do you have specific markets that you look for or work in?
Yeah, so we are personally, I'll speak on both. We're personally buying in greater Ohio markets. So Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton. We're looking up in Michigan as well. Really Midwest, you could say Midwest location of the country. But our primary focus is definitely Cleveland. I mean, I'm born and raised here. I think it's an amazing market here. The price point's great. It's good cash flow and historically a very strong market. So with where we're currently at in our economic cycle, I feel very good, about Cleveland. And, it's not like Austin when the recession hit, it got sliced in half. In Cleveland, you're not really going to see that. It's kind of like a slow and steady market. So that's what we do on our side. And then on the brokerage side, it's really, I work in Northeast Ohio. So it's, a few kind of like Cuyahoga, Summit, and Lake counties are the three counties that we're most active in on the brokerage side of things.
Perfect. And then as far as the active side and the broker side, I think since you've walked both lines, you do have that kind of unique perspective. What do you think from a broker's perspective? What do you think is kind of the biggest downfall, or maybe the biggest misstep a lot of investors take when they're first trying to reach out to brokers? Maybe they're brand new to multifamily. They haven't closed, they don't have 80 units like you do. What do you say though to those first new investors? What do you usually find is their biggest mistake?
I think so. I mean, everyone has to start somewhere, right? Like not long ago, we didn't have anything. We were talking to brokers, having conversations. I think a very important thing to do is to present yourself confidently, kind of know what you're talking about, know the lingo, things like that. There's no issue being brand new, but you should at least have an idea and general understanding of, commercial or multifamily real estate. One big downfall I could say for investors also is something that we practice on the other side is they'll say, hey, send me the details on this deal. And then you'll send it and they'll be like, oh no, or like they won't respond or say anything. Or you'll say, oh no, that's just, not for me. Okay, that's fine. I mean, we do the same thing. We turn deals down all the time. We say, hey, this is exactly what we're looking for. This is why, break it down in an email. This is exactly why this deal didn't work for us. So that at least gives me as a broker, another broker understanding, not a broker, I'm a real estate agent, but the realtor, whoever, an understanding that, okay, this person knows what they want. They know what they're talking about. It gives some, what's the word I'm looking for? Some really
Credibility, maybe.
credibility. Yeah, exactly. To that investor, even if you're brand new. So if you come back and say, hey, tell us, I'm looking for XYZ. This is why this one doesn't work. I do deals as well. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I'll mark it down on my CRM, and when we find something, we'll send it over.
Fantastic. And what would you say to build that credibility? What are some key points that investors should know before they reach out to a broker or realtor looking for multifamily? What do you think are some important aspects to the property or themselves that a broker is going to want to know firsthand, right off the bat?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing broker's gonna ask you, what you have. If you don't have anything, say, hey, I don't have anything currently, but I work with this group where they have 1,000 units or whatever that looks like, to show that you're surrounding yourself with people that are doing deals and do have business, and you're not just, oh, I think I might just want to do commercial real estate. Can you help me find a deal? I mean, I think that is huge when it comes to, just kind of getting started. And also, educate yourself, read books, listen to podcasts, just to understand the general lingo, know how to underwrite a deal, practice going through that, a bunch of times. So you at least, when you see a deal, you can go through it pretty quickly, understand it, digest it, and regurgitate that back to the broker and say, hey, the operating expenses don't look good. Taxes shut up on the purchase. So the numbers don't really work for me. I'm looking for a 15% IRR, a 12% cash on cash. This is only at a 7% cash on cash, on the purchase. It just doesn't really meet our criteria. Then, like I said, the broker understands, okay, this woman or man is serious. I'm going to keep them on my list for future deals. If not, even as me as a smaller real estate agent, you get people that are kicking tires all the time, and the big brokers too, Marks and Millichap, CBRE, they're on a whole nother level. So they do not like to waste any time. So that's like the most important thing, is to not waste their time and show them that you are serious and capable of taking down these deals.
Yeah, I like that you brought up some of the kind of the underwriting perspective, because I feel like a lot of investors might start the conversation with, I want something that's between 5 and 15 units only, and I need something that's, $50,000 a door, all that's very, very property specific, whereas everything to me that you mentioned was more underwriting specific, which is going to be very variable, according to who's doing the underwriting. So I think that's a great point, because how that person underwrites, and if they come back to the broker and say, these are the metrics I'm looking for, these are the metrics I'm generating, since the broker sent over the deal, they probably get a little bit of a feel for how that particular investor's underwriting. If they go, oh, well, how did they get a 7% cash on cash out of that one? And then that leads to a deeper conversation. So I like that you brought up underwriting metrics, as opposed to, what number of units you want, or what price point, all those various things. I think that the underwriting is probably going to tell you a lot more about the investor than just the basic metrics of, I need 10 plus units under this amount per door, value add, and all those other things that I think tend to get thrown around a lot.
Yeah, for sure, Alex. I totally agree. And another thing that we do, we offer to send over our underwriting when we don't agree with the price, or it's too high for us. We don't want to insult anybody. Or say, hey, happy to jump on a call and review our underwriting with you guys, kind of tell you where we're coming from. A lot of times they don't want to do that. They just want to stick with the offers on the table, but at least then they know you're serious, you got everything going on. And one thing I do want to mention, it is extremely important to, like you said, to know exactly what you're looking for from an asset standpoint, right? So us, we're looking 20 to 150 units, B and C class neighborhoods, value add. But like I said, that is what thousands and thousands of people are looking for in today's market, especially with today's gurus that are everywhere just preaching this. Everyone says the same exact thing. Brokers get the same stuff all the time. So you really want to be confident, say, hey, this is exactly what I'm looking for, and these are the exact returns that I'm looking for on these deals. We don't put a price per door on it. Like the deal we're closing tomorrow, it's a 70 per door. We close one at 30. We're closing one in a couple months at 50 a door. So to me, that matters less than the actual metrics, financial metrics, IRR, cash on cash for our deals.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I think how someone underwrites a deal is very, very unique. And that does give you an opportunity to stand out, like you mentioned, from other investors that are looking for the same old all the time. That's the bread and butter of multifamily right now.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned, the underwriting process, and you guys also kind of chime in on that aspect of it, how have you seen the market change there in Cleveland as both an active investor and a broker? And what do you think that's doing to buyers? Have you seen the kind of the buyer profile maybe change as the year of COVID has kind of progressed now?
Yeah, I mean, COVID has been, great for the real estate market. It's a seller's market right now. It's kind of like how is the rest of the country. Very hot. Prices are definitely going up, especially here in Cleveland, because you're getting a lot of national attention, right? People are coming from New York, Colorado, California, that they have all this money to spend. They're going to sell a duplex in California, get $1 million, and come here and buy 25 units. They're like, what? It's crazy. So, and they're happy to take a 6 or a 7 cap when me as a local investor, like, yeah, we'll take a 6 or 7, but we need to be able to bring that to a 9 or 10 and 11 cap. So it's definitely driving prices up. It makes it a little tougher for on-market deals, to really be very competitive, because a lot of people are just overpaying for deals, and that's just the name of the game right now. So we don't overpay for deals. On our personal side, we do a lot of direct to seller marketing. So we find off-market deals with cold calling, sending out mail, emails, things like that to a lot of these local owners. And that's how we've sourced a lot of our deals recently. Like we went and toured, 23 unit the other day and here in Cleveland, and those would be for us to buy. And the broker said, yeah, we're going to sell it at 6.5 cap. When you adjust for the taxes year one, it's like a 4.5, maybe a 5 cap. I'm like, that just doesn't work for us and our buying criteria. Because we have passive investors that invest with us passively. We need to hit XYZ returns for them, and that just throws it out the window. But I wouldn't be surprised if they still get that number because of someone coming from out of state. They have a 1031. They just want to drop their money and make 6% pro forma, but it's just not for us. So I would definitely recommend people, yes, definitely talk to brokers, talk to the big players in town, let them know what you're looking for. Because a lot of times the big boys will have smaller deals as pocket listings. So if they have a 20 unit, they say, hey, Tal, you're looking for a 20 unit, here it is, off market right now. But definitely do some direct to seller, marketing and outreach, things like that. I do both. Brokers don't always love that because you're calling the same people that they are. But it's business. It is what it is, and we need to find deals, and that's how we're finding a lot of them right now.
Yeah, oh, I agree. That's definitely the route a lot of people are taking to kind of avoid this cap compression of the last year, maybe a little bit more by now. As far as the new investors that are starting out, what does that normal kind of new investor relationship look like, just from a typical kind of deal standpoint? So say they reach out to you, how are they reaching out to you? What's that first conversation look like? And how does the relationship kind of progress to looking at deals and eventually through closing?
Yeah, of course. So I'm kind of everywhere right now. So people find me, a lot of times from Facebook, tons of referrals from past clients, our website, stuff like that. They'll hear me on a podcast or something and reach out. So it's usually via email. That's really the real connection. It's like a Facebook message, email, phone call, or text, really those 4 kind of platforms right now. Um, It'll be, hey, this is John Smith. This is what I want to do. And, I'm new to real estate, but I'm very serious. I'd love to get on a phone call with you, hear more about what you do, or whatever that kind of looks like. So from there, we get on a phone call, and I have people all the time reaching out to me that want to invest or whatever. So you need to, if you're even thinking from a bigger broker standpoint, you want to be very considerate of their time. So you don't want to get on the phone, talk to them for an hour. They're just going to kind of be annoyed, but make sure you're respectful of the time. You kind of tell them, give them the spiel, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. But they need to understand that you're serious, right? That you're ready to buy. If you present them a deal today, you're going to pull the trigger. So that's the biggest thing. And then, on my end, on the broker side, so we'll just go in, have that initial conversation. I'll update everybody in my CRM. This is pretty standard across the board for real estate professionals, you can say. And as we find deals, I'll say, okay, Alex is looking for a 25 unit BNC class. Boom. Here, I'm going to call, hey, Alex, I got this deal for you. So, because we do a lot of off market on the brokerage side too. So we cold call owners for smaller things also that don't meet our criteria. And then I'll call my buyers and say, hey, we got this deal. Here are the numbers. Let me know what you think. From there, we'll analyze the deal, either you alone or us together, come up with a number. I'll write up the offer. I'll obviously negotiate everything in regards to the contract. And then where I really specialize in my little niche is helping with due diligence, right? And the contract too, because when we write up our contracts, we have our attorney do it, but I know what to kind of have in there to protect my clients and make sure they are getting a good deal, right? Make sure they're not getting taken advantage of, things like that. So we help a lot during that. And then also during due diligence, do a rent roll audit. Hey, did you do this? Did you do that? Here are the leases. Here's the utility bills, kind of the whole 9 yards, to make sure that my client is not missing out on anything. So from there, help them navigate, up until close, and, obviously connect them with property managers, contractors, whatever they need. We have a great network here. So we kind of pass all of that along to our clients, and a decent broker should be able to help you with that too. Say, hey, who's a good property manager? Do you have a good plumber? Whatever that looks like, a referral always, in my eyes, is normally works out the best.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Word of mouth is gold in real estate. So going back to your kind of original point about making sure the buyer is serious. Now, most people might be familiar with like the residential side, where if they're putting offers in on things, they might have things like a pre-approval letter, they're all these various things. But on the commercial side, obviously, since the deals or the financing tends to be so focused on the asset itself, it's not really the same process as getting like a pre-approval letter. You're pre-approved for $2 million to buy 100 units or whatever it happens to be. So what do you suggest having kind of at the ready to kind of help boost your credibility or your seriousness? Do you normally ask for things like asset statements, or how many passive investors do you have soft commits from and stuff like that? What do you normally kind of use to vouch that somebody's serious?
Yeah, I mean, a proof of funds can go a long way, right? Say you're trying to buy a building for $1 million, show us a proof of funds for the 25% or whatever, at least some amount of money that you can see. And we've run into this on our active side, right? Like if we're doing a syndication, we do some syndications too. So you said, show us your soft commitments. How much money do you have, soft committed? What does that look like? Let's see bank statements. So it gets a little more complex. Usually get to that point once you're in almost like a highest and best situation. They won't usually ask for that off the rip, but like you said, there's not really a pre-approval for commercial real estate. Sometimes if you have a good lender relationship, they'll write up a letter that's very arbitrary, right? So, hey, it's pre-approved up to $1 million, like someone that and is willing to work with you, and they know that you're serious, you're going to close the deals and have the capacity. So, those are a couple things, but I mean, just from experience on the brokerage side, you can tell when someone's serious. Just their tone of voice, their confidence level, how quickly they act on things like that just sets you apart. And even if you're brand new, you need to be confident. You need to know your stuff, and the broker, the agent, whoever will really pick up on that. And then when they ask for a proof of funds, okay, boom, here it is. Or say, hey, I'm actually syndicating this deal, but we have $250,000 or 150 soft committed already. We have a laundry list of people that want to invest with us. So as long as you always be transparent and honest and true with what you're actually doing, because if not, you can sniff that out pretty quickly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I agree 100%. Now, as far as the syndication model, since you're working in kind of in the smaller deals, like you mentioned, that's kind of your niche. Do you see a lot of people syndicating deals of that size nowadays? What's that usually look like?
Not really. It's hard because like I mean, the deal that we're closing tomorrow, we syndicated, and it's 24 units, buying for about 1.7 million. So it has a higher ticket value, so we could syndicate it, right? We raised about $700,000, closing, reno, and down payment cost. So that's, I think, in my eyes, about the bare minimum for syndication, because the attorney fees for the syndication, I think, was like 13 grand to do the PPM and all the org docs and everything that they needed. It's going to be more than that, just because you have multiple layers and entities, and gets much more complex once you get to that stage. So to buy a 10 unit and syndicate it doesn't make sense. I always recommend people to do like a joint venture, right? Come together with 3 or 4 friends, put $25,000, $30,000 each of you, run it together, designate a manager, close the deal. So we did that also for a 22 unit that we have here locally as well. And we're even looking to do it on a larger scale with some other potential projects. But yeah, the smaller stuff is very hard to syndicate. Doesn't really make sense just from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, I really like the fact that something I keep hearing over and over from you and other brokers is that brokers can really be an asset. It's beyond just connecting you with deals on market or off market. You can provide some guidance. This is what I'm seeing locally. This is what this other deal closed for. You grew up in your particular market where you happen to work, so you've probably seen decades of change in those particular areas. So I think that kind of gets underrated almost, that most I think new investors don't necessarily think of a broker as an asset. It's always like, I need to win this person over so they'll work with me. But in reality, it's almost, this is another partner on your team, as opposed to, I need to win this person over to work with me, because you guys have so much knowledge that, just from the experience, other deals you've closed, deal flow is literally your lifeblood. So you know what's closed, what's offers have been out there. So you mentioned a couple of things that you do for buyers as far as the underwriting and connecting to lenders and plumbers and contractors and things like that. What are some, I guess, typical, we'll just say, ancillary services or ancillary connections that you think a broker could make to a new investor?
It's a great question, Alex. So really, I provide my network to everybody, right? So I tell them, I mean, it's some main things you're going to need are property manager, key. Lenders are huge. Contractors, of course, will make or break your business, just like a property manager. Specific trades, electrician, plumber, things like that. But I usually refer one general contractor. They kind of sub all that stuff out. And then, I have an amazing attorney that I pass on to all my clients if they want to use him. Title companies that we have relationships with. So those are the kind of the key 5 components or so. And one thing I do want to mention, when you're beginning talking to a broker, you want to, yes, ask for these referrals. Maybe not the first sentence you say. Don't say give, right? Like, how can you add value to them? Because if I'm working with an investor and they're like, okay, send me, 6 referrals, and I've got this. This doesn't give you a good feeling, right? Like, I'm happy to share those with you, but let's have the conversation. Let's keep it moving. And one thing I wanted to say before, actually, I forgot about. It's key for the investor to follow up with the broker every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Hey, John, how you doing? How's your wife? How's business going? Did you close that other deal you guys had? Just to stay top, because I mean, I'm talking hundreds of people a week. You have to stay top of mind. And then it also shows your seriousness as an investor. So I think that's a key point I forgot to mention before.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my follow-on questions was what do you recommend as far as the following up with a broker once you've made that initial contact? How frequently? I know you mentioned a little bit earlier if you send over a deal to someone and then they don't get back with you in kind of a timely fashion, what do you think your normal kind of turnaround time is that you're expecting for a deal if you send over, a couple pro formas to an investor, and what sort of timeline are you expecting some sort of feedback?
I mean, I expect, within a few days. I mean, me personally, you can send me a pro forma on a deal tonight. We'll write you an LOI in a few hours. So that shows strength. Or we've gotten deals just for that reason, for our speediness, and it shows that you're serious. If you send me numbers tonight, I can send you a an LOI later this evening. That's a huge amount of value, and it's all about creating that win-win situation, right? You as the investor, you're going to win by buying the property. The tenants are going to win because you're going to update the property, make it a nice place to live. And the broker's going to win because they're going to get a good commission check, right? So you always want to keep that in mind. Don't just like take. You always want to provide some kind of value. It's like tough to do that as a new investor, but just keep that in mind that you are adding value to the broker. Don't toss them to the side. Continue to have that conversation, even post close. So when you want to have another deal, you're going to reach out to that same, man or woman to, keep it going. So, and also build rapport, build that personal, business relationship as well. That's not just like this deal's fine, that deal's fine. Like try and dig a little bit deeper, right? It's going to make you stand out from the 100 other people that are reaching out.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, going back to being able to kind of give that feedback, this is only 7% cash on cash return. I'm really looking for something a little higher, or maybe you don't like the neighborhood. You're looking for this other zip code or this other city, maybe you want a B asset as opposed to a C asset. I think that feedback is very, very valuable, and that helps you guys kind of tailor better and better deals further on. So the next email you get from a broker will be closer and closer to your target. If you don't provide that feedback, they're either just going to give up, or they're just going to keep, throw the spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks kind of approach, if they're really still willing to work with you with zero feedback.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have a great example. Like someone sent us, my title guy sent me from a commercial title company we know very well. Sent me, I think it was about a 30 unit deal or something like that. We looked at the numbers, went and toured the property with the owner, super nice lady, no brokers involved. And, after a few days, we did some back and forth talking, and then we had something else going on. So it's probably like 4 or 5 days later. And then my title goes, "Hey, Tal, you guys interested in this?" I'm like, "Oh crap." Like, excuse me, like, shit, I forgot to message back. It's totally my bad. So I type up a very nice email. "Hey guys, this is why we're not interested. This is what we're doing. We appreciate your time, blah, blah, blah." My title guy reaches back out. Tal, that's the most, well thought and put together emails. And I have the utmost respect for you and your group for just doing what you do and how you do it. It goes a long way, not just with the brokers. If you're going off market too, it goes a long way. Even when you're going off market for deals, do the same thing. "Hey, Mr. Seller, this is why the deal doesn't work for us. Please keep my number. I hope you guys are doing okay, blah, blah, blah." That deal could come back. Like that's happened to us in the past where we've kept good relations. And 6 months later, the owner calls and says, "Hey, Tal, I'm actually ready to sell now. Something came up, unfortunately, but I'm kind of pushed, into that direction. Do you still want to buy?" So of course, David, no, I'm still ready to go. You know what I mean? So a lot of times they just come back, and it's key to just keep building the rapport. Make sure you stay respectful always. It's one of the most important things in the business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's no reason to ruin a potential relationship over, a couple $100, couple $1,000, whatever it is, because, chance, like you said, with the title company, it's a title company, really well. He sent you a deal, it might be, if you never got anything back, that could have potentially hurt your future relationship with that title company.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would say, with all the relationships, everybody says build a relationship, build a relationship. That's what it is in real estate. Do Do you guys have on the commercial side? I know a lot of people on the residential side are familiar with that structure where there's like a buying agent, and that's pretty much what they do is they only work with buyers, or maybe they're a listing agent or a seller's agent and they only work with listings. And then maybe there's some people in between that do both. Is commercial real estate set up something like that?
Commercial real estate, there are, yes. There's definitely people that are just buyer's agents. There's a lot of brokerages like a Marks and Millichap. They're just doing listings, right? That's what they do. That's their bread and butter, and they don't pay co-brokes. Like, so it just is what it is. Um, there are some agents too, more not in your typical huge, national brokerages, excuse me, that do both, right? They'll represent you, they'll help sell you stuff, they'll do a little, live in both worlds. So it kind of depends on the size of the deal that you're looking for.
Yeah, because I bring that up because sometimes people are, if they're reaching out to a broker and they're really trying to get a hold of a broker and there's not really a response there, it could be just because they are not a selling broker. They focus on just talking with the sellers. They want to get the listing. They're not really interested in talking to buyers. And, some new investors might get upset about that. And, oh, this person won't return my call. And it just might be just not a good fit.
Yeah, it depends really on the size of the asset you're looking for. Like, once you get into larger apartment buildings, you need to be prepared to basically represent yourself, right? If you want to bring in an outside broker that that you want to represent, you make sure they do investments in commercial, that's fine. If not, use your attorney and they're gonna, I don't say hold your hand, but make sure that you're protected like a broker would, help you negotiate the contract, make sure you stay on your P's and Q's. And our attorney is a key component to our team. He's absolutely huge.
Up to what size deal would you say, a buyer's broker is involved in?
Buyers brokers are involved in, 100, 200, 300 unit deals as well. It more so depends if the buyer wants to have a broker involved, really, at the end of the day. Like, so as a buyer, you'll get on these investor lists or on these email lists from big brokers, and they're going to send it out directly to you, right? Like, yeah, you can go out and get another broker involved. But if you're like me, you know what you're doing, you know how to write a pro forma, you'll have your attorney write up the contract. There's no reason to bring in a buyer's broker. Like, yeah, it's like, look out for you, whatever, but that's what your attorney is going to do. That's what the contract's going to get done. And even for like the win-win, right? You want to add value to the listing broker to get that deal. Like, you need to sell the listing broker in order to get that deal. Yeah, it's really the seller, but like, they are the gatekeeper. They're the ones that you need to really sell and say, hey, this is why you're going to choose me. This is why I'm ideal, blah, blah, blah. So if there's no buyer's broker, they keep 100% of the commission. That goes a long way for bro. Like, at the end of the day, that's what they're seeing is like those dollar signs. And yeah, I'm going to get my client a good purchase price. We're still going to do pretty well on this deal. If you have to split that with another broker and he's a pain in the ass, it's I've been in both situations, so it can go both ways.
That's a really good point because I think that's a very different structure from the residential side where it's often very, very much advocated that you as a buyer have your own agent, if you're working on MLS listings, and then the seller have their own agent, and basically only the agents are talking to each other. So I think that's a key distinction between residential and commercial properties is that same kind of dynamic does not always exist. And I don't think a lot of new investors really realize that they're so used to, if they bought duplexes or maybe they bought a couple quads and that's their only experience in multifamily, and then they jump into commercial multifamily. And like you mentioned, it's a completely different avenue, into that multifamily space is not always through a normal buying broker.
Yeah, like, I've done both, right? Like, we do a lot of, like I said, 1 to 20 units. That's kind of our niche on our real estate team. So we represent a ton of buyers and a ton of sellers. So we do both. We'll represent one or the other with no other agents involved. Sometimes another agent will be involved. So it really depends on the situation. Once you get to the bigger deals, you're going to see that even less.
Yeah. And we do have a question. Do you happen to know any local brokers in Hampton Roads that would be willing to work with new investors?
Hampton Roads. Where exactly is Hampton Road?
We are right where the Chesapeake Bay meets the Atlantic Ocean. So right where North Carolina and Virginia meet along the coast.
I do not, but I know a guy out in Virginia Beach area.
That's Hampton Roads.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You might know him, a guy named Phil Caprone. He's not a,
Yes.
so yeah, he's not a broker, but he's a buyer. He may be able to point you in the right direction. We haven't really looked out that way, but good guy. I like Phil a lot, and I know he's doing all kinds of stuff over there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good point. And I would say, for someone that has multifamily, maybe they have some smaller multifamily, since you mentioned portfolio deals. And what does that look like for you as a broker if someone comes to you and says, hey, I have these 4 duplexes or these 4 quads that I'd like to sell as a portfolio deal? What does that process look like when they are going to offload that particular asset?
So it's really the same, right? I mean, our team specializes in really positioning these assets and these portfolios in a way that really makes it pop, right? So my fiance Lauren does all like the marketing and back end stuff. So she'll create a pretty package, a flyer. We'll put that out, in all of our groups, send it to all of our clients, email blast that out. And I mean, I tell sellers right now, if you want to sell 4 package deals, 16 units, let's say, let's put on the MLS. So you'll list them individually, but you put in the remarks that you can sell, you can buy all, even if you want to sell them all together, must be purchased with X, Y, and Z, street. So that's my recommendation always, but the key is to package it and present it. So someone that is just getting into real estate wants to buy 10, 15 units, boom, that comes across their desk. Oh, they're pretty close. The numbers look great. Here's the current, here's the pro forma. It's in a clean, understandable package. And, you just kind of go from there. But the presentation is really key when it comes to selling portfolios or even any kind of asset, honestly.
I would say, so for example, one of that kind of presentation that I hear frequently from new investors is they're always looking to have some sort of creative financing or seller's financing or something like that. How frequently do you see that on the commercial side, some sort of creative financing or seller financing?
Um, you see it from time to time. Right now in the market, how this is very rare because sellers know that they're sitting on gold, even if it's not gold. So a little more rare. That being said, we've been talking with the seller for quite some time now. He's got like 105 units or something in a great location here in Cleveland. And he wants to retain some equity passively after he sells. So we're like coming up with a creative way for him to retain equity as an LP or like a passive silent investor in our new operating agreement, but we're buying at a discounted price based on a few different factors. So we haven't gotten any, I mean, I guess on the 57 unit that we're partnered in, we got seller financing there, but extremely old guy, our partners down there kind of took care of everything. So it's around, but as a new investor, don't lead with that. Oh, I want seller financing. No, it's going to be a case by case basis, right? And if you're in a position where the seller says, I want $1 million and you're at 900, right? And he's firm on that $1 million number. You say, okay, I can offer you 900 in conventional purchase, or I'll give you your $1 million, but this is how we're going to structure it, right? You're going to hold 25% for a year or 2 years. We'll balloon you out after we refinance and we'll get you out of the deal. So it's all about being actually creative, not just saying you want creative financing, right? You have to take the situation, the scenario, how it is, and, work with it and be an artist.
Yeah, I think that's another key distinction between residential and commercial on the multifamily side, because I think a lot of conventional, financing is very, very common in the commercial space because, like you mentioned, it's just so much of a seller's market that they don't even really have to worry about it. But when you put in an LOI, if a new investor is putting in LOIs, is it pretty common for them to be able to structure multiple options within the same LOI that I oftentimes see on the residential side?
Really an attorney question, to be honest with you. I mean, you can, right? You can add a separate paragraph, have your agent or your attorney write in, hey, option 1 is above, or option B is XYZ. A lot of times we'll even do that via email. Like, hey, here's our LOI for a typical offer. However, if you absolutely need more, we can change it to, you're going to hold 25% of the note for X amount. Whatever that looks like to get creative. Um, that's how we usually go about it, is even just via email, instead of actually putting it inside of the LOI.
Yeah, because I've seen multiple like purchase contracts on the residential side. They'll have like option A, option B, option C, and then the seller kind of circles essentially, which one they're willing to accept. But I don't think I've seen that too frequently on the commercial side, where usually the LOI is the LOI, and that's what you're going with. So I'm happy to hear that you can at least still have that open communication, at least even via email. That here's some of the other options we're looking at.
Alex, that's really what it's all about, right? Being open, communicative, and getting the seller what they want. What is their pain point? Is it price? Is it time? If it's time, they want to close tomorrow, they just need half the purchase price today. Perfect. Give them that. You know what I mean? Tell them, okay, we'll give you 1.1 if they want $1 million tomorrow, but you're going to hold 500,000 for 3 years at 5% or whatever that looks like. So they still make some money. If you mess up, they take the property back and they have that 500,000 that they needed today. So it solves their problem. That's like all about creating the win-win. Like, you get a good deal, they get a good deal, everyone comes out happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and send them in. I want to be respectful of Tal's time as well, because I know I've learned a lot. I love talking to brokers, being able to kind of get that inside track on what it really takes. How can people get a hold of you should they want to get a hold of you?
Yeah, of course. So my best email is tal, at ltcapitalgroup.com. I'm on Facebook. It's probably where I'm the most active right now, at Tal N as in Nathan Tamir. Here in Cleveland, Ohio, if you want to get a hold of me, like I said, shoot me an email. Happy to get on a phone call with anybody. And yeah, no, I really appreciate, you having me on, Alex. It's been a pleasure. And, like I said, if I can ever help anybody with anything, I'm an open book for sure.
Yeah, and if you're looking to invest in the Ohio market, you have the connection here with Tal, because he could be the boots on the ground for, it sounds like, a lot of connections that you might need in that particular area.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I'll talk to investors all the time. Say, oh, I talked to 15 real estate agents, and not to like toot my own horn, right? I hate to do that, but it's like, oh, well, I'm not even calling anybody else. Like, you're who I've been looking for, because I'm, like you said, boots on the ground. Hey, you're not just getting me, you're getting me, my experience. We buy buildings, we know what things are going for, and here's access to our whole network. A lot of times you just get the real estate agent, not the contractor that they use, the property manager that they use, the attorney that they use, the title company they use. So it's like a lot of added value aside from just representing you on a deal.
Yeah, and I find that's really true when you're working with these smaller boutique firms, that, if you are looking for the same thing that they are working, which niche they're working in, that they oftentimes will happily and usually go the extra mile for an investor. Because I know there's, a lot of people, they want to talk to like the guy at CBRE, or they want to talk to the guy, the mill chap. But like you mentioned, they're very, very busy. They don't have a whole lot of incentive to go on and add that extra value to an investor, because they have people beating down their door. Whereas I think you get much more service for a lot of newer investors. To me, that's the best place to start, is if you're a newer investor, really kind of zeroing in on these markets that are cash flow friendly, and you also have some sort of value add boutique firm that wants to work with and is willing to work with newer investors to kind of help them jump off the ground. I think that's far, far better a strategy, as opposed to trying to make 20 phone calls to 20 different brokers every single day, Monday through Friday. That's, to me, that's more like you're just throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping somebody, you land something, versus just intentionally reaching out with a purpose.
For sure, Alex. I mean, I think it's important to also reach out to the brokers. That being said, get on their email list, right? Talk to an associate. You only talk to the big man in the house. He doesn't have time for that. Like, I went and met with one of these guys the other day, but we're building a relationship. He knows what we want to do. So, hey, I want to introduce you to our principal broker. He's been doing this for 30 years, a big player in town. Had a chat with us for 45 minutes, really good time. But that being said, we have history, background, we kind of know each other. So that's why I was able to do that. But make sure you get on these brokers' email lists. Say, when you have that conversation, please add me to your email list, or even you can go on marksmilchap.com, select Cleveland or whatever market it is, upload your information. You'll get those email blasts that come out when properties come available. So yeah, you might not be getting the pocket listings or whatever, but those are still deals that you can see, that you can underwrite, where you can start having those conversations with these brokers.
Yeah, and I would also add that I've seen some brokers and some brokerages kind of getting into that education space and putting themselves out there, showing up at virtual networking events, doing speaking engagements, something like this. So if you are specifically really wanting to work with a specific broker in a specific market, you could almost kind of social media stalk them and find out, show up at virtual networking events that they're doing and, show up to talks that they're doing. And then when you do follow-up emails, you can say, hey, I saw your talk that you did on Thursday night at such and such a thing. I feel like that goes a long way with a broker as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, it just shows you're serious. You're not just like jump on phone. Oh yeah, I want to buy multifamily. Like you got 50 phone calls this week with the same thing.
Yeah.
So you got to find some way to set yourself apart and show that you're serious. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. I want to be respectful of your time. I really, really appreciate this. And I look forward to, if I know anybody that's interested in the, Cleveland market or Ohio, Northeast Ohio market, I will definitely send them your way.
Thank you so much, Alex. It was an absolute pleasure. Thanks everybody for watching, and really appreciate your time.
Thank you.